behind Star Wars.
The origins of Kylo Ren date to George Lucas's earliest conceptions of a sequel trilogy prior to Disney's purchase of Star Wars in 2012, in which a son of Han Solo and Leia Organa struggling with the dark side of the Force was always part of the story. In some of these versions, the son's name was Skylar, and he was corrupted to the dark side of the Force by Darth Talon, a character originally created for the Dark Horse Comics Star Wars Legacy comic book series. Talon's role was then morphed into that of the Jedi Killer, the initial name of the character who evolved into Kylo Ren, used throughout The Force Awakens pre-production before J.J. Abrams and his team settled on the character's eventual moniker. The Jedi Killer's design went through a number of different iterations before finally being approved on March 11, 2014. Abrams specifically requested that the character's mask be designed to be a nod to the iconic helmet worn by Darth Vader, as well as to be memorable to a child. Several of these early Vader-esque designs were rejected before later being repurposed for the Knights of Ren. Other concepts depicted the Jedi Killer as a cyborg holding the Vader mask relic, as the object was once the central MacGuffin of Episode 7's plot before being rewritten as simply part of Kylo Ren's shrine on board the Finalizer. One further rejected art concept showed the villain with a red mask featuring a black circular pattern. This design later inspired the appearance of the Guavian Death Gang security soldiers who attack Han Solo's freighter.
Han Solo, you're a dead man.
The filmmakers also considered giving the Jedi Killer his own personal interrogation droid, which made it into The Force Awakens in a small way when Kylo Ren tortures Poe. Concept artist Glyn Dillon, who came up with the character's final design, said creating the look was like trying to land a helicopter on a penny, as it had to be evocative of Vader without referencing him too heavily. A big help was the works of science fiction illustrator Chris Foss, whose stripe effect of black and yellow starship camouflage directly inspired the striped metallic design of Kylo Ren's mask. The helmet also resembles that of Revan, the Dark Lord of the Sith who first appeared in the 2003 video game Knights of the Old Republic. Kylo's unique medieval-style crossguard lightsaber, meanwhile, was largely inspired by the look of Luke Skywalker's own lightsaber in Tom Young's iconic 1977 posters for the original Star Wars film, while the unique ferocity of the saber's blade was meant to reflect the character's fiery temperament. The weapon's original form as Ben Solo's lightsaber appeared in a flashback scene in The Last Jedi, but although similar in appearance to the weapon later used by Solo as Kylo Ren, it was not actually confirmed to be the same lightsaber until the release of The Rise of Skywalker's visual dictionary. J.J. Abrams loved the Jedi Killer's final design when it was presented to him, and finally decided upon the character's official name that same month. The moniker Kylo Ren is notable for its striking similarity to that of Kybo Ren, a space pirate featured in the Star Wars Droids animated TV show from the mid-1980s, who may have directly influenced Abrams' choice. Regardless, the character's true name of Ben Solo remained a closely guarded secret to disguise his true parentage. According to The Force Awakens' original screenwriter Michael Arndt, whose screenwriting duties were taken over by Abrams and co-writer Lawrence Kasdan when he departed the project, the character's backstory came about because the writers needed a rationale for the heroes of the original trilogy to have separated after the events of Return of the Jedi. Abrams wanted Episode 7 to tap into parental fears of losing a child, and believed the only way Ren had any hope of being a worthy successor to Darth Vader was if he killed his own father Han Solo, as he couldn't think of anything more hideous than patricide. Abrams also wanted Kylo to still be in the process of becoming a villain, one who hadn't yet fine-tuned his emotions. The character of Ben Solo shares a number of similarities with Jacen Solo, the son of Leia Organa and Han Solo in the now non-canonical Star Wars Legends storyline. Jacen, the twin brother of Jaina Solo, was a Jedi Knight who ultimately turned to the dark side and became the Sith Lord Darth Caedus. It was Jacen's hope to lead the Galactic Alliance in bringing order to the galaxy after the horrors of the Yuzin Vong War. He killed his aunt Mara Jade Skywalker and committed atrocities across the galaxy before he was finally killed by his sister. Prior to the casting of Adam Driver, other actors such as Eddie Redmayne were considered for the role by J.J. Abrams and casting director Nina Gold, but Driver was always the favourite, and in the end he didn't even have to audition for the part. Driver approached playing Kylo Ren by refusing to view him as a villain in order to get inside the character's head. He instead viewed him as a sort of religious fanatic who sees his actions as morally justified rather than evil, and therefore someone who would stop at nothing to accomplish his objectives. The role also marked the first time Driver had portrayed a character who was younger than him in real life, which added to the character's impulsiveness. On set, Driver often stayed in character, keeping his helmet on for long periods despite finding it difficult to see what was in front of him. The process of getting into Ren's costume provided an extra motivation for the actor. Driver said that by the time he was in costume and ready to shoot, the cumbersome and difficult process left him feeling so pissed that by the time they were ready to start shooting he felt totally ready. Co-star John Boyega later stated that acting alongside Driver was intense because Driver tried to forget that he was in Star Wars and took the role as seriously as any had ever played. Driver spent some 3 months training to prepare for his lightsaber scenes in The Force Awakens and barely spoke to co-stars Boyega and Daisy Ridley during the filming of the movie's climactic duel on Starkiller Base, as he believed it helped bring a sense of frustration and fierceness to his portrayal. The lightsabers themselves, unlike in previous Star Wars films, actually emanated their own light on set, adding a greater sense of realism especially to the fight scene in the dark forest. Kylo Ren's parentage was initially supposed to be revealed earlier in The Force Awakens, when he speaks to Darth Vader's helmet. Kylo calling Vader his grandfather would have been the reveal, and the scene was written to take place shortly after Finn and Poe escaped from the Finalizer. Kylo originally would have blamed himself for not having done anything about Finn's defection from the First Order, and would have sought the counsel of his grandfather for guidance. Eventually, the film's editors Mary Jo Markey and Marianne Brandon felt the revelation came too early and was a waste of a good moment. Instead of its original placement, they moved the scene later in the film to foreshadow Han Solo's death. Some scenes were left on the cutting room floor altogether, including one in which Kylo boards his father's old ship, the Millennium Falcon, after its crash landing on Starkiller Base. In previous roles, Driver found it difficult to sit through his performances and hated seeing himself on screen. He made an exception for The Force Awakens, however, and watched the film in a private screening with just his co-stars Daisy Ridley and Carrie Fisher. The actor said he felt comfortable sitting through the film and watching it with them because of how much time and effort he and his co-stars had put into the film. Rian Johnson, writer-director of Episode 8 The Last Jedi, believed the most interesting option for Kylo Ren would be to remove the character's shaky foundation in the next film. Johnson stated that by the end of The Last Jedi, Ren is no longer a Darth Vader copy as he is Supreme Leader and has no master, unlike his grandfather. At Johnson's request, the position of the character's facial scar was also moved slightly for the film, while at one point the character was even going to shave his head. Recalling the shooting of the movie, Mark Hamill described Driver's approach to portraying Kylo Ren as moody and intense, with Driver once again staying in character as much as possible on set.
Adam is so, when he's here, he's like so...
It's intense.
Intense.
I know.
It's fine, it's great.
Yeah, it's very good.
The famous Ben Swallow shirtless scene in the film was actually a last-minute addition. After 6 months of training for the fight scenes in The Last Jedi, Driver was in incredible shape physically, and Johnson thought he looked so good that it would be a shame never to see Kylo without his costume. The scene, of course, became a viral sensation, but the less said about that the better. Driver later thanked the staff at the gym he used in Kerry, Ireland, to stay in shape during his shooting of scenes on Ahch-To, in which Kylo's relationship with Rey develops through their Force connection. As for the throne room fight scene between Kylo Ren and Rey on one side and Snoke's Praetorian Guard, shooting such a complex battle was far from easy.
So this fight did take quite a long time. The fact that we did this with such heavy sabers is nuts, because you film fight scenes for a really long time and they were really, really heavy. And with a lot of these shots are really long and everything had to go in one. So if one person messed up anything, it would sort of ruin it. Adam was like quite in his like zone at that point, but when we were like doing this, we were both on wires, and Adam sort of looked like a giraffe that had just learned to walk on ice. So I couldn't stop laughing at him, and he was doing his like very intense thing, and I had a great time, and he didn't.
In Colin Trevorrow's leaked script for his version of Episode 9, Duel of the Fates, written prior to the director leaving the project in September 2017, Kylo Ren gets horribly injured and has to undergo painful surgery to repair what's left of him, and gets a new mask to cover his badly burned face, much like his grandfather Vader in Revenge of the Sith. His journey, like in The Rise of Skywalker, begins on Mustafar, but in Trevarrow's script, Kylo actually enters Vader's castle as seen in Rogue One, alongside his new droid VX-20. Other locations visited by Kylo Ren in the script include Coruscant, where he sustains his injuries, and a planet called Mortis, where he meets Tor Valum, a 7,000-year-old alien Sith Master who trained Darth Plagueis. Tor Valum raises an apparition of Darth Vader for Kylo Ren to fight, in a clear homage to the scene where Luke fights a vision of his father in The Empire Strikes Back. Kylo loses and then angrily confronts his new master and kills him. Also, the character learns to drain the life force from beings to heal himself, which is evocative of Rey's powers in The Rise of Skywalker. In the final duel between Rey and Kylo on Mortis, Leia senses her son is about to end Rey once and for all and reaches out with the Force to stop him. A mother's love therefore redeems Kylo Ren and turns him back into Ben Solo. Instead of letting Rey die, he gives her the life force he stole from her, but it comes at a cost as he dies. J.J. Abrams' script of course took things in a different direction, while retaining certain elements such as Kylo's visit to Mustafar at the beginning and his death following his eventual redemption. The Mustafar sequence in the first minutes of The Rise of Skywalker originally included a scene in which Kylo encounters a mysterious oracle that looked almost like a giant baby with a spider-like creature controlling its brain. J.J. Abrams fell in love with this creature and wanted some exposition behind Kylo's pursuit of the Wayfinder. The Rise of Skywalker novelization reveals the oracle character is known as the Eye of Webbish Bog, and the scene was actually shot, but was cut either for pacing reasons or because it was a little too disturbing for Star Wars. Mustafar itself was depicted differently from its previous appearance in The Revenge of the Sith, notably with a lack of lava, which was a conscious decision on behalf of Abrams and his team to show how the environment had changed in the past 4 decades. Abrams also made the decision to reforge Kylo's helmet after he destroyed it in The Last Jedi. During The Rise of Skywalker, the mask was put back together using an ancient Sith forge by the Simeon metalsmith Albrecht, who used Saracen iron to painstakingly meld the helmet back together, making it stronger than ever with deep red lines from the repair work. Abrams compared the fractured mask to kintsugi, a Japanese ceramic art of repairing broken pottery. The breaks in Kylo Ren's mask were meant to be a visual representation of his fractured character. Instead of hiding him as it did before, the mask tells his history. In a later interview, costume designer Michael Kaplan revealed that he was very surprised with the decision to destroy Kylo Ren's helmet in The Last Jedi. He stated that it took him and Abrams a while to come up with the right mask for Kylo Ren in The Force Awakens, and they were very disappointed to see it taken away and destroyed so quickly. As for the Knights of Ren, their much anticipated return in The Rise of Skywalker was pretty disappointing in its brevity. However, we did at least find out the names of the 7 Dark Warriors at last: Aplek, Cardo, Kuruk, Trajan, Ashar, and Vikrul. The scene in which Kylo and Rey face off at the second Death Star ruins on the ocean moon of Kefbir was tough to film for both Driver and Ridley.
It was really physically exhausting, and you were like wet and soaked and cold and on wires. I loved it. You know, it's like how many times are you going to get a chance to do that?
I did want to murder Dom special effects because there were a few times where they said no water cannons. And when I say mid-scene, literally a dump of water on my head.
For the following scene in which Ben Solo returns after speaking to an apparition of his father, Harrison Ford was flown to London in secret, and a small crew shot the scene itself in an attempt to stop leaks. Fans were of course left disappointed in the extreme by Ben Solo's death following the final defeat of Emperor Palpatine on Exegol, with criticism of the decision a huge reason behind the backlash against The Rise of Skywalker. Abrams and co-writer Chris Terrio believed it wouldn't work for Ben Solo to go on living after the atrocities he committed as Kylo Ren, but personally, I think his survival alongside Rey following their kiss would have ensured a much more satisfying conclusion to the saga. One thing's for certain though, Adam Driver's performance will go down as the best thing about the sequel trilogy, without a doubt.